Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. We're back out here on site and this little job here, taking off some, you can see across the road there are some external hung tiles on the gable end, and basically that's what was up there originally. This is a steel framed house, so what I've done, I've taken off all the tiles, taken off all the bitumen felt, which is, I'll just show you down here. So all the old tiles, all the battens are down here, but this is the new stuff that I'm going to be using to hang the Siberian larch cladding off of. And this is the bitumen felt that was up there, so that's come off and I'm replacing it with a breathable membrane. It's called Tyvek. I'll just show you. So it's all this stuff down here, and that's going to go up there on the gable end there, and I'll have 2 layers of battening on there. Okay guys, so let's just sit the camera down. So what I've just formed like a little template of what it would look like. So this section here will be the bottom layer, so it's going to go horizontal, and then the top layer is going to be what the cladding goes onto. So if you can imagine 400mm centres going all the way up the wall, and then what this does, this allows for an air flow going up through there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use, it's a wire mesh, but what I want to stop doing is creepy crawlies and all that sort of stuff going up there. So what I'm going to use is, it's just actually a soffit vent, but it's microfiber and the gaps are only like 2mm, perhaps not even that. So what that will do, it will wrap up underneath. I'll just go over and show you what it will do. So what we don't want any creepy crawlies going up underneath there and all the way around. So So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to wrap it up over the back and up over the top like that. So what it will do then, it will still allow all the airflow to come up through, but what it will do, it will stop little creepy crawlies coming up underneath. Alright, so that's what it will look like, and it's going to go, GB News is Britain's news channel. It's going to go all the way along the bottom, so between the render and the tops of the windows. And then it's going to come up that little box detail here, and then it's going to come all the way up the gable end, right up to the top of the apex, and then back down again. And then I'm going to leave about an 8 to 10mm gap between the cladding and the soffit underneath the gable end, and that's going to allow for airflow all the way around. So what we don't want, guys, is for the timber, because it's going to be left natural, it's going to go grey over time, we don't want it to sweat, and we want constant airflow up through there. And I'll show you what I'm going to do with the membrane in a minute once it's up. Right now, guys, the next step, now that I've done all the felt on there now, so it's all tacked up there, just using some roofing batten nails and some little copper nails just to tack it there, just to hold it in position. Now what I've got to do next is start setting up the battens for their spacing. So the way that I'm doing this is like I showed you that jig, is horizontally first and then uprights to take the cladding, because the cladding is going to go horizontally. So what I've done now is that I've set out 400mm centres, and the way to do that, okay guys, is to measure your width of that. So in this case it's 48mm, so you come 400mm on the tape, which is down there just next to the X, and then you come back half the thickness. Right, so it's 375 millimeters, and then you can just go all the way through, and then it will work out to 400 millimeter centers for all your battens. And then what I had to do next is that fly vent, just to stop any little insects getting up there. So what will happen when it's a little bit of batten. Okay guys, so this is going to represent the upright, okay, marked out on that line there for the 400 centers, and that will happen, the fly vent will wrap up over the top like that, okay, so then that will stop any little insects from getting up in there on the back. Right, and I'll get the first one on there, and then I'll show you what it's like when it's all level, and how I'm getting it perfectly, I mean spot on level, is by using this laser. I clamp it to my 6 foot level and just move it up until it pings to where it needs to go, and I'll just work all the way along, and that would be my datum line for working off the spacings going upright and horizontally, which they will be 400 centers as well. It's just because the customer has decided to leave all these this cladding natural, so what I want to do, I want to stop any cupping of the timber. So if you can imagine, the board is nice and straight. As it shrinks and it grows, it wants to cup towards the sun, so sometimes you'll find boards they do that, and so we want to try and minimize that as much as possible. So that's why I'm going for a tighter spacing. Normally on external cladding like that I would go 600 centers and it'll be fine, but because they're not being treated, I've got to do as much as I can to stop any cupping. So, alright, and I'll show you what the first one looks like when it goes up there, and I'll show you how I ping the line and all sorts of stuff like that, keep it nice and straight. Right guys, I've made quite a bit of progress on this gable end here now. So you saw me yesterday, I put on these battens on the back first, once I put the membrane on, and now I'm putting on the verticals because the cladding is going to be going horizontally, so we need a pickup. And like I said yesterday, I've made them at 400 millimeter space-ins, so 400 mil all the way through. And I set up a datum line, which is this one on the bottom, or just a reference line from one point to the other, making sure it's reasonably parallel. And once I've got it all lovely and straight, so the string line is absolutely perfect, there's no movement in there whatsoever, then I went off of the middle one all the way up to the top and got it lovely and flat. And now all I'm doing now is just taking my level and just sitting it on there like that, and just making sure there's no gaps all the way up through. And you can see between the batten that's going horizontally and the batten that's going vertically, there's a little space there, about 5 millimeters. So we need to put some folding wedges in there and fix it off. So I've already cut a bunch of folding wedges down there on the saw. So literally all I do is just fold it in there like that with one and another, like that, and just pinch them together. Because what you'll find is as you pinch in with the screw, it will want to compress ever so slightly. So okay, so that's what you want, guys. All right, so there's no gaps down there. It's lovely and flat. Look all the way up to the top. It's absolutely lovely. And down here. All right, so all you got to do then is just repeat all the way through, down to that end, and all the way down to the other end. And then once you know everything's absolutely flat, then what you'll find is as you put on this is a ton of groove boarding that's going to go on here, you won't see any undulation throughout the whole thing. And this is what you want, guys. All right, you don't want any bows or anything like that in the run of your cladding, because you'll see it forever and a day, and we don't want that. Alright, so I'm just going to show you what I do. It's easier when I'm not holding the camera. So just got my folding wedges here. There's about a 3-4 millimeter gap at the back of the upright battens. So this one here, not this one here. So I literally just fold them over the top of one another. Alright, hang on, that one's a little bit too thick. That's it. Alright, and just check it with the level. Let's see if it's flat. Lovely and flat. Check it through with your level. That's absolutely spot on flat. Perfect. And just get your screw. And just screw it from the upright batten in the middle to this horizontal batten. That's it. That one's done. So now I've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Got about another 12 to go, and then that's it. We can start fitting the cladding. I'm just going to show you this little detail I spoke about yesterday. You saw me tacking it to the perimeter battens. So all this black stuff here, that is a netting to stop any insects coming in. So it wraps up over the back of this one here, and the same on the bottom here, and then all it would do, it would just drape up over the top like that. So what that creates then is no little insects will be able to creep in through there, because when I took off all these old tiles, like across the road there, the tile hung gable, there was nests and all sorts of stuff in there. So we just want to avoid that as much as possible, but we want airflow up through here. So this is why I've got another 25mm batten over the top of these ones, because then when your cladding goes over the top, so over the top of these ones all the way through, you've got a 25mm airflow all the way around. Welcome back, guys. It's another day. I'm just starting to put the Siberian larch cladding on there now, and I'm going to show you how I fit it all and the nails and stuff that I'm using. So because it's exterior and this Siberian larch has not been treated with anything, so it's staying natural, I was a little bit worried about using 18 gauge brad nails, which is what I'd normally use if they were treated. I just don't want any of this larch to want to pull out, so I'm using some ring shank stainless steel nails there for outside, and you use a 2.5 times the thickness of whatever you're putting on there. And on this cladding, you've got different sections of moulding on there. Can you see that little chamfer on the top of where the tongue is, where my thumb is? That represents the outside, so when water comes down between the layers, it will hit that little chamfer and run off to the next board, and so on and so forth. So underneath here you can see my little fly net, so that's going to stop any creepy crawlies from going up in there, any birds and all sorts of other stuff trying to get up in there. And what I've done is that I've come up on the first board because I've got a fixing right there to take that batten about 25mm up, so I've had to come slightly further above, but the rest of them I've come around about 30mm above. And you just want them now so they're just sitting on the outside. You don't want them to sink in because the cladding, because it's natural and it's going to suck up moisture, it's going to shrink, it's going to contract, it's going to want to try and pull away. So you want to stop that as much as you can. So what, I've only single fixed it because as you put the next one on and the tongue and the groove sits over the top of the tongue and you fix it there, it will just hold it all back. Okay guys, now the pitch of this roof is 30 degrees. So if you can imagine, everything works out to 90 degrees. So a triangle, guys. So it all works back to a square. So your square is set at 90 degrees. So if my uprights, so plumb, coming down this way, the pitch, line of the roof is 30 degrees. My C cuts, so which is this line, because it's going 90 degrees off 30, it would be 60 degrees. Okay. So that's what's been done down there, right up in the corner. All right, and I've just allowed for a 5mm airflow all the way around. You don't want it too big, otherwise it look a little bit unsightly, but just so we got constant airflow going all the way around. All right, I'm gonna sit this down and then we're gonna get one fixed on the wall there. So what I'm doing now, guys, is just getting the board roughly in position. Sit it down on top of the tongue, but you want to make sure that you've got about a 2mm gap there, just to allow for shrinking and growing and stuff like that. And just come back through the boards and see if there's any larger gaps than the rest. To me that looks absolutely spot on. Now we can go ahead and fix it off. I'm just using my DeWalt First Fix nailer. And remember, just come up about 30mm, something like that on the gauge lines, nail it off, and then it will just push the next row back in against the battens, which is what you want to do. And just keep going up until the job's done. Perfect. And that one off. And that's it now, guys, and you just keep going all the way up until you get to the top. Right now, guys, I'm going to show you how I can accurately measure these angled cuts. Right, so I already know that the seat cut is 60 degrees, okay? So instead of trying to measure from the join back over to there, which can be very, very tricky, just get an offcut piece, cut it at 60 degrees, make sure you got a 90-degree cut on the end as well, and just sit it in there to what gap you want. In this case, I want about 5mm parallel up through there to allow for the airflow. And then just measure from point A to point B, and that measures at 1574. Just double check it's the same at the top. Yeah, 1574. And then what you need to do afterwards is take it over to your bench. Okay guys, so now I've already cut this one here. Alright, so what we need to do is just sit that on there so it's nice and flush, like that. And then you just grab your tape. And measure guys, 1574, because you need to add that bit on because you sat that up there and measured from that join. Alright, if you measure 1574 from the angle cut that you've already done on the bottom piece, it will be wrong. So just butt it up against that butt joint, make sure it's perfect, come back in, it was 1574. Mark that on there. And then we'll cut it off.
Miley said, this is from, well, Jordan says, could you play this for Jordan?
So cut it at 90 degrees guys, nice and square. Right, then what you want to do from there is the battens up there are 400mm centres. So because we're going to the centre of that batten, because it's on a join, just mark 400mm, 800mm, 1200, 1600 to where you can't get any more. And then just go on with your little combi square, or any square, and just mark those off nice and gently, just so you can only just see them. And then what you'll do then, you'll line your nails going all the way up through instead of eyeballing it and it looks a little bit weird. I'm a bit anal and I like to see all the nails in line all the way up through. It just makes it a bit of a neater job guys. Alright, so when people look at it, it just lines all the way up through rather than having like staggered nails everywhere. Alright, so that's how you cut that angled section. You just go all the way up. You can do the right hand side, left hand side, all the way up to the top. And that's it. We'll be finished. Right, that's it guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode on how I installed some external Siberian larch cladding. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and I'll see you all again on the next one.